and Araba. And the music you're hearing right now is from Clean Cut Combo, a jazz group from Washington, D.C. area. And today we have a very important show. We have Mr. Patric Burrows. He's a professor and an author who wrote a book about press media in Liberia. Press freedom in Liberia. Power and press freedom in Liberia, 1830 to 1970. Please stay in your seats. We'll be right back.
Advertise your business on African Lifestyle and reach a vibrant cross-cultural community with your products and services. For more information, call 703-896-6212 or visit us on the web at africanlifestyletv.com. African Lifestyles, where business and community come together.
And welcome to African Lifestyles. Today we have a guest with us, Mr. Patric Burrows. He's an author and a professor, and we're going to be talking about his book along with other books that he's written. But today we're going to be talking about power and press freedom in Liberia. Hello and welcome, Mr. Patric.
Hello.
How are you today?
Wonderful.
So, you say you're an author and a professor.
Mm-hmm.
What do you prefer to call yourself? Which one are you first?
I'm all of those, and I'm a father as well.
Okay.
Okay,
so
yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So, when did you start writing?
I can't remember a time when I wasn't writing. I developed an interest in writing and the arts pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
I think in part it was because I was one of 5 children, but I had the experience of being an only, because the 2 older ones were close in age and close in activities.
Right.
The 2 younger ones were similar,
Uh-huh.
and I was somewhere in the middle, separated
yourself,
from
okay.
the
So
two
you did
groups.
your stuff.
So I did my thing, and I drew, and I wrote, and so forth.
Okay.
And early on, I started writing poetry and
At what
some
age?
essays and what have you. I remember in high school, at least in high school, I started getting published.
Wait,
And,
over here or in Africa?
Oh, I was born in Liberia.
Okay.
In fact, I think one of the things that led me to kind of reflect and write was the environment I grew up in. It just stimulated, an interest in kind of recording what I had experienced.
Right.
I grew up under what is called a cotton tree in West Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
Silk cotton, huge. It's like a landmark.
Okay.
People could tell you, if you're traveling, look for that tree. It would be there for hundreds of years.
Oh, okay.
And then surrounding that were all of these fruit trees, mangoes and, soursop and what have
Yummy.
you.
Love it.
And so, yeah, that sort of experience, I think, stimulated my interest in sort of writing and describing some of what I had experienced. But by high school, I was getting published.
Oh, that's
and it led
good.
me to an interest in a career in journalism.
Oh, okay.
What was your first book that you wrote?
The first book was this book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then subsequently I collaborated with 2 other Liberians to do what is called the Historical Dictionary of Liberia.
Oh.
It's like an encyclopedia.
Right.
So if you go to it, under each entry you have the name of a person or of a organization. And most of the major institutions in Liberia are listed. So it's a quick guide to the history of Liberia.
This book or the other book?
The Historical Dictionary of
Okay,
Liberia.
so it's actually called Historical Dictionary of Liberia.
yeah.
Okay.
You don't have it here.
I didn't bring a copy. I
Okay.
brought a copy of this one to give away to your audience.
Oh,
But,
okay.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you actually go to school for journalism?
I did. My undergraduate degree was in journalism, and then my subsequent degrees are in communications.
Okay.
Along the way, I figured out I was really interested in the history of communications, and so I began to focus more in that regard.
And what are you like? What do you teach? What are you?
I teach at Penn State University, and my courses are media studies courses. So I teach writing for media,
Okay.
communication theory, a variety of classes actually.
What led you into teaching?
That's an interesting question. I had earned my master's degree in the States and decided I was going back to Liberia to live. I mean, that was what people did at the time. And when I returned, I was stringing together a variety of writing options. So there were magazines in London that I was writing for. West Africa Magazine. It's a really ancient. I mean, it's been around for 100 years or so. And then New African and a couple of other publications like that. But none of them paid really well.
Okay.
I didn't want to write for the government media at the time, and the government owned most of the media.
Right.
So at that point, shortly after I returned, I was approached about teaching a course at the university. The university was interested in starting
State?
a journalism
No,
program.
in Liberia.
This was at the
Liberia.
University of
Oh.
Liberia.
Yeah.
Mhm. And they were interested in launching a journalism program out of the English department. And I was asked if I would teach a course.
Oh.
I hesitated. In fact, immediately said no.
Right.
You're the wrong person. I didn't train to do this. I wasn't interested. But I was persuaded by the then president of the university. She was the first African female head of a university,
Oh.
and very persuasive. And she told me, "Look, I understand you'll be self-conscious, but always remember you know more than they do."
Right.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
and I agreed to do this one course, one night, part time, and I discovered that was what I was meant to do.
Right.
in
And that
addition to
led
my
to
writing.
you here.
Right.
What brought me here? The events, that had spiraled into the Civil War and such, started with the military overthrow of the government,
Oh, okay.
and there was a lot of violence at the time. I was a journalist writing about these experiences, and it became clear fairly quickly that it was dangerous to be a
Oh,
journalist
okay.
practicing,
Yeah, it's true.
especially not working within the context of one organization. So I opted to leave. I had lived here for some time, and I figured I'd come here 6 months, things settle, and
You
I'll
go
be back.
back.
Right?
And you've been here ever since?
And it just spiraled, towards the war and all.
Oh, okay. All right.
And you're teaching at Penn State, right?
I do.
How do you live there or you live here?
I actually live in the Maryland area, D.C. area, close enough to D.C. that I have access to all of the
Everything.
city life that I enjoy. But then my commute is 1 hour and a half each way.
Oh, every day.
So you you travel every day?
Yeah. But there
Oh,
are people
that's
in the
crazy.
Washington, D.C. area who have commutes.
You're right.
of
Not
an
me,
hour,
though.
hour and a half.
I won't do
Do you drive or
drive.
you take? Oh my
I
God,
can't do
I
that.
can't do that.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Do you have kids?
I do.
You do.
4
And
kids. Mhm.
Oh, okay. And did anybody go to Penn State or?
My oldest, actually.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
All right.
We bleed blue and white.
Right.
Anybody interested in taking over your career?
Well, that's an interesting question. Had you asked me this question a few years ago, I would have said absolutely not. They were all committed to going some other direction. But my oldest ended up actually majoring in communications, although
Oh, okay.
his particular interest is in advertising.
Okay.
So it's slightly different, but still related.
So how long does it take you to write a book, or how long did it take you to write either one of your books?
Well, it varies depending on the book. But this
Yeah.
book took, I would say, perhaps 10 years.
Oh.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I was doing other things. I'm teaching and researching in between. And usually it was during the summers that I would end up doing my research. I was living in California for a part of the time I was working on the book, and I would have to come to the Library of Congress in D.C.
Oh,
and
okay.
visit other
For
libraries to
research.
do the research.
Okay. I hear you.
That book took that long. Other books might take less time.
Right.
The second book I collaborated with 2 other people on, so we were sharing the work. And it
Okay.
went a little faster.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Mr. Patric Burrows and more on his book, Power, Press, Freedom in Liberia.
Experience the essence of African arts and culture. The film African Lifestyles, Saturdays on Ion Media Network. Advertise your business on African Lifestyle and reach a vibrant cross-cultural community with your products and services. For more information, call 703-896-6212 or visit us on the web at africanlifestyletv.com. African Lifestyles, where business and community come together. Enjoy a lifetime of healthy smiles. The Gainesville Family Dental Center is a state-of-the-art facility for the entire family. Personalized care and pain-free dentistry are some of the reasons we have become a premier destination for comprehensive oral health. Located on Linton Hall Road at Braemar Village Plaza, call 703-368-1272 and enjoy a lifetime of healthy smiles. Call today and take advantage of our $99 new patient special for a comprehensive examination. Includes x-rays, fluoride treatment, oral cancer screening, and consultation. Call now, 703-368-1272.
The Boutique is your one-stop shop for everything African. Fashion for the entire family. Beautiful African textiles at wholesale prices. Thousands of African movies with new titles daily. The Boutique is Africa Central, with a large collection of beauty and fashion accessories, calling cards, moneygrams. The Boutique, 674 South Pickett Street at the corners of South Pickett and Van Dorn Streets in Alexandria, Virginia. Call today, 703-212-2037.
Welcome back. If you just join us, we are here with the author, Mr. Patric Burrows.
Before the break, you said that it took you 10 years to write this book. I want to ask you, what motivated you to write this book?
Well, it was based on my experience, you know. One, being interested in journalism and in the context of Liberia. There was no history of the Liberian press that I knew of, and yet it's one of the oldest in Africa. The press started in Liberia in 1830. So it was interesting to me to figure out what the story was.
Right.
And then there was the question of my experience as a journalist under conditions where the government owned most of the media, and there were problems after the military took over of journalists being blocked from reporting. So those two issues really concerned me, and I wanted to look over the course of Liberian history to say what kinds of problems had journalists faced in the past, and how were the media organizations organized in the past. And it took me that long. I wanted to tell a story that wasn't only focused on the big picture, but to look at the individuals who were involved. Because a lot of the newspapers that existed were operated by a few people at a time. Sometimes one person owned the paper. He might have had someone helping him to run the press. But they were small-scale operations. And so I wanted to recount the stories of these individuals. So if you go in the index of the book, you'll find that there are listings of names, hundreds of names of people that are mentioned in the text.
But can you tell us about like Mr. Stroberfield and Mr. Keene?
There are several Stubblefields actually who are mentioned in the book. It's interesting that you ask about the Stubblefields because their story illustrates one of the phenomena of the Liberian press. For 100 years, there were no government-owned newspapers or other media in Liberia. Newspapers were owned by churches, by individuals, and so forth. And you asked me about the Stubblefields, and they got involved in journalism because they were operating a newspaper that was related to their church. And they operated a church school and they operated the newspaper, which was also related to the church. So that was one of the phenomena that I was surprised when I went to do the research to discover, because growing up in Liberia in the 50s